drove back for chapter 7 of my book, Flowerantha. Today I am solo. My daughters are off enjoying their weekend in different parts of the house, so maybe they'll pop in at some point. Here's chapter 7. Mash tried to twist around to see the ground beneath him, but he could only peek over his shoulder. The wind whipped past him, whistling in his ears. His back slapped against the branches of the trees, which slowed his fall. He fell through one canopy of leaves and twigs, then another, and finally into a bush. The prickly branches of the bush felt like hundreds of pins violently jabbing into his skin. He cried out, and tears stung his eyes. "Don't be such a wimp, Mash," he told himself. He blinked and wiped his dirty hand over his eyes. Moving each of his limbs one by one, he tested if anything was broken. Everything moved with little pain, besides some noticeable tenderness where bruises were forming. It was mostly his back and neck that ached. He pushed himself up to his feet and groaned. "Wait, where's Beverly?" His stomach turned and his aching muscles tensed. He called her name, but his voice was hoarse. The wooded area where he had fallen bordered a small lake. He dropped to his knees at the edge of the water and scooped a handful of water into his mouth. "Beverly," he called again. Something brown floating down the coastline caught his eye. He ran down the sandy beach and pulled the object onto the grass. It was the burlap sack, and it still held 5 of his throwing knives he had wished for. He swung the bag over his shoulder and gasped as the cool, damp fabric hit his warm back. Then he angled his hand over his eyes to block the sun as he scanned the lake and the surrounding area. "Beverly!" He heard a faint whimper behind a large boulder. Hurrying behind the boulder, he ran right into a hunched-over Beverly. "There you are," said Mash. "You're soaking wet. Did you land in the lake?" He put his arm around her shoulder, but he had nothing with which to cover her. "You're here! I was scared I was all alone." Beverly's chin quivered, and she wiped her nose on her wrist. "Of course I'm here." He dropped the sack and rubbed both her arms. Beverly shivered and hugged herself. "Did you fall too? Your shirt is ripped." "I did. You and Maylin aren't the only ones who had never ridden an aquasys before. I should stick to what I'm good at, climbing trees." With a move of his arm, he winced. "I wasn't as lucky as you, though. I landed in a bush and scraped up my back." He rotated so that she could take a look. Beverly touched the torn leaves to move them to the side as Mash flinched. "Sorry, you are pretty scraped up." "Can you just rip it off? It hurts to have anything touching my back." Sure." Beverly sniffed and lifted the leaves from his back and tore it until the shirt was in 2 pieces. "I'm going to dip in the lake, then we can get to the castle. Hopefully we'll see Bushral and Maylin along the way." Mash sighed as the cool, refreshing water eased the heat on his back. Beverly knelt down in the grass to wait. "Hey, are you and Bushral enemies or something? He seems mad at you all the time. I don't know if I'm supposed to trust you or not." "You're supposed to trust me," said Mash. "I don't know what his problem is with me, but Olivia wouldn't have sent me on this quest with him if I wasn't trustworthy." Beverly shivered again and plucked a few blades of grass. "Yeah, that's what I figured." With only his head above water, Mash swung his arms and made little whirlpools around himself. "Are you all right? You still look scared." Beverly dug her fingers into the grass and yanked out a handful this time. "Are you kidding? Of course I'm scared. I almost got eaten by a flying dinosaur. And that was after I fell off a flying horse with duck feet. And I'm wearing plants." "I was kind of having fun at first, but where I come from, it's not dangerous like this. The most dangerous thing I have to worry about is not getting hit by a car when I cross the street on my bike." Mash cocked a half smile. "I don't know what any of those things are, but if that's all you have to worry about, then I would really like to go there." "Maybe if I knew how to use a weapon, I could have done something," said Beverly. "At least I wouldn't have been a sitting duck like I was." "Maybe I can help you with that." Mash stepped out of the lake with water dripping off everything, from the leaves on his shorts to the brown hair of his forehead. He went over to the sack of knives, pulled out 2, and handed one to Beverly. "We can both practice our knife throwing." "It's heavier than I expected. I guess I'm used to the toy swords my brothers have, and steak knives we use to cut our meat at home." "Yeah, I guess they fly better when they're heavy. Here, hold it like this." He grasped the knife in his palm with his index finger along the top handle in order to aim, just like Bushral had shown him. Drawing his arm back, he propelled the knife directly into the tree he was aiming for. He whooped, "I did it! Now you try." He watched as Beverly held her knife. Adjusting her grip, he squeezed her hand closed around the handle and then separated her index finger from her fist to move it into position. "There. Now make sure your arm starts out straight and ends up straight." "Follow through. Got it," Beverly muttered. She threw the knife, and it whizzed right by the tree trunk and clattered against a root. Mash chuckled. "Not so easy, right? But your form looked good, I think. Let's try again." She swung again and managed to lodge the very tip of the knife into the tree. "Wonderful, you're a natural." "You caught on a lot faster than I did, at least." Beverly nodded and pulled the knife out of the tree. "It's kind of like throwing a softball." Mash raised an eyebrow. "Softball, it's a sport," she said. "Something you play. Never mind. Those knives were my first wish for the day. Only 2 to go. Hopefully they will last us long enough." He stuffed 2 knives in each of his pockets. "You can keep the last one." Beverly felt her dress-ready pockets. "Where?" Mash analyzed her options with a finger on his chin. "Here, let's do this." He knelt at her feet and cut off a length of leather cord that was tied around her ankle. Sticking the end of the cord through part of the woven grass that made up the foundation of her dress, he tied the knife in place at her right thigh. Then he arranged a lilac bunch over it. "Be careful not to cut yourself." "Yeah, no kidding. I wish I had pockets." She smoothed the lilacs over the knife in an attempt to cover it more. "Speaking of wishes, have you always had 3 per day? And why don't I get any?" He tilted his head. "You know, I don't know why visitors don't get wishes. I guess it's in our blood. We used to have unlimited wishes, but lately, with the Monster Knights round, we are only able to use 3 wishes a day. If we use more, they're basically useless." "That's not fair. You used to have all the wishes you want, now you only have 3? Mash sighed. "The Monster Knights have more power than they should." Mash and Beverly walked the beach in silence as their hair and clothes dried from their dip in the lake. The sun beat down on their shoulders, but it felt more refreshing than sweltering. The sand was also cool and didn't scorch their toes as they displaced it with each step. "What is the amaranth like?" asked Mash. "You're going to have to be more specific." "How is it different from Flowerantha, specifically?" "Well, it was pretty hot there when we left, and it's nice here." "Is it always hot there?" "No, definitely not, especially not where we live. Sometimes it gets really cold and snowy, but I suppose other places are hot all the time, like Africa or South America, and other places are cold all the time, like, I don't know, like the North Pole, I guess." "I'm going to get there someday." Beverly shrugged with her palms up. "Why would you want to leave? Your family is here." "I just feel like I don't fit in here. Yes, I have a family, and yes, I'm best friends with a mermaid. You don't have mermaids there, do you?" "Unfortunately not. At least not that anyone knows of. I don't think your mermaid friend likes us, though." "No, she probably doesn't." Beverly's eyebrows knitted like she expected a different answer. "As close as we are, I hate to say it, but she knows I'd leave her and this place the first chance I got." Bushwell seemed pretty impressed with Nautica. Kind of seemed like he likes Maylin, too. Mash's expression turned to stone. I got that impression as well. Beverly crossed her arms tighter. "Maylin will be okay, right? I mean, she'll be safe with him at least." "Bushwell's like a knight, right?" Mash's head snapped in her direction. His tone was rushed as he said, "He says he's going to be a soldier someday, but that doesn't mean he knows everything. He has no idea what the russets in the castle are going through just to get a chance at a new life." Beverly chewed on her lower lip. Mash ran his hand through his hair. "He just has some silly notions about russets. He doesn't respect us for some reason. I can't figure him out." Beverly nodded. She kicked the sand as she walked, sending puffs of debris into the air with each step. They had been walking shoulder to shoulder. Mash drifted to the left, away from the water and away from Beverly's side. Their silence lasted as long as the beach did. After what felt like an hour or more, they were walking on grass. "I'm sorry for bringing it up," said Beverly, quiet enough that Mash could barely hear it. Mash laughed through his nose. "I guess deep down I don't respect the soldiers either, or wannabe soldier in Bushwell's case." Beverly started to say something, but Mash covered her mouth and froze. "What?" she said through his hand. He motioned to get down, and Beverly flopped to the ground with a thud. A small creature, maybe half the height of Mei Lin, that was light green in color and looked like an alien, with round, animal-like eyes and bug-like antennas hobbled toward them. The creature wore a maroon suit made out of velvet. "Cerulean," it said. "Cerulean, Cece!" "Oh, it's just a zomp." Mash stood, brushed the dirt off his knees, and waved. "Cerulean." "Cerulean, my name is Tumsky." Mash introduced them both. "Wow, you just appeared out of nowhere," said Beverly. "Magic, girl." Tumsky snapped his fingers. He disappeared again and reappeared on a tree branch above them. "So you be trying to get to the castle, huh? Maybe I can help with that, for a price. I know a shortcut." The creature crossed his arms. Mash's pleasant expression turned serious. "What's the price?" He held up just one finger. "One wish." Mash jutted his jaw out. "Those are valuable, don't you know," said Tumsky. "Yes, I know," said Mash. "I think we can get to the castle on our own." "But would you not like to get there quicker?" "That would be nice, but that's a high price to pay." Mash crossed his arms and looked at Beverly for an opinion. She shrugged. "All right, I will pay it." Tumsky opened his maroon suit coat to reveal all sorts of odds and ends that would not fit undetected under his jacket if not for magic. Some of the artifacts were tools, such as wrenches and hammers. He also carried a couple pocket watches, a pearl necklace, and a few mason jars sticking out of pockets, and vials of liquid attached by thin strips of fabric. He untied the bindings around a telescope and took it out. "This is what we need. Magic scope. We will be able to see castle right through trees." Tumsky put his eye up to the small end of the telescope. "Can I see?" Mash reached out his hand, and Tumsky let him look through the scope himself. Tumsky swiped it down from his eye after a second and clutched it to his chest. "That's enough, Mr. Mash. It be very special. You don't know how to use it. I will help you." "Did you see anything?" asked Beverly. "I actually did. I saw the castle far away beyond the trees. We better get moving." "Yes, we better, Mr. Mash," said Tumsky. "Follow me." The group wound through the forest, not sticking to any path, but stopping for Tumsky to check the scope and walk whichever way he pointed. After about a half hour, Beverly's stomach grumbled. Mash touched his own bare stomach. "Is that you or me? I'm getting hungry." "That was me," said Beverly. "Tumsky, are we getting any closer? This part of the forest looks very familiar." Tumsky looked up at the overhanging trees. "What makes you say that, Mr. Mash? Much of the forest look alike. It all be trees." "Yes, I know, but I remember those two trees specifically. The one is growing through the trunk of the other one. That's pretty unusual, don't you think?" Tumsky ignored the question. "We can eat real soon." Another half hour passed, with the three of them stomping through the forest, and Tumsky stopped once again to use the scope. "Ah, yes, the castle is much, much closer now. Care to see, Mr. Mash?" Mash snatched the scope up and squinted through it. His eyes widened. "Actually, the castle does look closer now. Do you want to see?" He handed it to Beverly, who also put it up to her eye, while she closed the other. Beverly shrugged and handed it back to Tumsky. "What's the matter, Miss Bev?" asked Tumsky. "Sorry, I don't mean to complain, but I'm getting really hungry now." "We've made some good progress. We could stop now, couldn't we?" asked Mash. "One more stretch," said Tumsky. Mash laid his hand on Beverly's shoulder. "Can you make it?" Yeah, I'll live. Let's go." A little into their last stretch, Beverly hurried to catch up with Mash, who had gotten far in front of her since she was dragging her feet and lagging behind. Once she was in stride with Mash, she elbowed him and put her hand up to shield her mouth. "Aren't those the trees you were talking about earlier? We've passed them at least 2 times now, but I didn't want to mention anything until I was sure." Mash halted and stepped in a circle, surveying his surroundings. "Tumsky, what is the meaning of this?" "Of what, Mr. Mash?" "Let me see that scope again." "If you think that's a good idea." Mash held out his hand and waited for Tumsky to set the scope in his palm. Before Mash could put it up to his eye, he turned it over a couple times and then shook it. "Hey now, don't break it!" "As if that's possible." He gazed through the scope again. The castle appeared even closer, so close that he couldn't see the whole thing at one time. "This isn't right." Mash?" Beverly poked him in the arm. "What is it?" He disappeared, and I don't know where we are anymore. Mash took the scope away from his eye. His mouth hung open as he rotated around in a complete circle. I know exactly where we are. The Zomp must have sent us here to put us off course, and we couldn't be more off course. Mash stomped through the field of flowers toward a tree in the distance. Beverly hurried after him. How far away are we from the castle? Remember where we started at Bushwell's house? Yeah. Farther than that. Beverly fell to the ground and sprawled out on her stomach, with her arms and legs splayed and her face down in the flowers. Mash stopped and put his hand on his hips. What are you doing? Dramatically collapsing. What does it look like? This is what I do when I don't know how to handle something. Mash let out something that sounded like a laugh sob. Does it ever work? Not usually, but it makes me feel better. Come on, let's find something to eat, and then we'll start up again, the long way. He offered her a hand and pulled her to her feet. That's the end of chapter 7. So Mash and Beverly are still in trouble, but hopefully they find their way to their castle in chapter 8. You want to say bye, Cece?